Lots of people don't train legs at all. That's not like sacrilege or something horrible. Ooh, Zeus is angry with you not training legs. But again, it's up to you. You're training your body, your choice. What's up, everyone? Back with another Q&A, so let's get right into the questions. The first one is, love your videos, much information, very nice. Cool. Can you tell me your top 3 favorite lifts? The first one is going to be the deficit deadlift. I just really like how this makes me feel, just having a ton of weight in my hands, moving it over a large range of motion. You have to be very explosive, very tenacious. It's mentally a really, really challenging lift. It's also technically very difficult because you have to get in a sort of awkward position at the start, and it works a huge amount of muscle. So it works the hamstrings, the glutes, the quads, the spinal erectors. My lats get really sore from this as well. Forearms, traps, basically the entire back, and it really is just a fantastic movement. Also keep in mind I have pretty long arms, so this is sort of suited to my body. If you have less long arms, you're more of an average arm length or a short arm length, just stick to a normal deadlift. You're still going to get a ton of benefits. My second one would probably be the overhead press. It works the shoulders, the triceps, the traps. It requires a lot of bracing. I find it to be a little bit more challenging than just a bench press. And what I see is a lot of people really like the bench press, and they prioritize that over everything. 50 or 60 years ago, the bench press was not a super popular lift. It was all about pressing, and a lot of people had more shoulder development than chest development. And I really like the overhead press. It's just a fantastic lift, and I definitely recommend to make it a priority in your training. Number 3 would probably be the high bar back squat. I much prefer it to low bar back squatting. It just feels more comfortable, easier on the joints. Low bar kind of puts your wrists, your shoulders, your elbows in an awkward position, and high bar is a much more natural place to put the bar. Furthermore, I think it develops the quads a lot better. EMG studies support this, and for me, when I'm squatting, I want to focus on the quads. I don't want to focus on the hamstrings or the glutes. For me, it's a quad movement. If I want to develop my hamstrings, I have deficit deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts or back extensions or any one of a dozen other hamstring movements. For me, when I'm squatting, I think of that as a quad movement, and this is going to be the king of quad developers. It really is fantastic. Often I will do it with a pause. Both of my hip labrums are torn from my distance running career, if you want to call it a career, and so for me, alternating between non-pause squats and pause squats for less volume than I used to do seems to produce the best results. If I do a ton of volume on this type of movement, I will not be able to walk properly for a while, but I do really like it. I think it has a ton of benefits. It seems to stimulate the appetite quite a bit, and definitely give this a shot in your training. I tend to stick with moderate to higher reps, again, just because it tends to be a little bit easier on the joints, and I also often tend to do rest pause as well. So I'll pick a weight that I could probably do for 5 or 6 reps and just see how many I could get resting in between each rep. So I'm resting maybe 10, 15, 20 seconds, just recuperating and trying to get that next rep. Question number 2 is, do you like where you live? I've lived in Shenzhen, China for about 9 years, and I really like it. It's a very sort of young city. There's a lot of technology. I worked for blockchain companies before, and it's one of my favorite cities that I've ever been in. I haven't really lived in a bunch of other cities. I sort of just graduated from university and moved right here, so I don't have a lot of cities to compare it to in terms of living, but I've traveled quite a bit, and it's a nice mix of a lot of different areas of China. It's sort of an immigrant city, and so there's people from all over China, and so you really do get a good feel of what all of China is like. I mean, I've met people from, I think, every province of China, and I think if I lived in a different province, I wouldn't have that opportunity because it's mostly local people, whereas in Shenzhen, it's very few locals and mostly immigrants. I've lived in this community for about 1.5 to 2 years. I'll roll some footage of that I took yesterday, and it's very sort of peaceful, very quiet, sometimes kids running around and stuff, but I really like it. We moved into a new apartment. Our old apartment was literally 10 square meters, which is like nothing. The bed took up half of the apartment, and we moved into a new place that's about 4 or 5 times the size, and so it's nice having a little bit more breathing room. And we're still in the same community. We moved about like 200 meters away, but it's a big change in how everything feels. And I don't really see us moving anywhere else in the near future. A lot of people say like, oh, she just married you to go to the US, like she wants a green card. And yeah, that does happen a lot, but that's definitely not our situation, because we don't even have any plans to move back to the US. We prefer living here. The quality of life is very good. You can get a lot of value for your money, except for real estate. But generally speaking, in terms of like food and just quality of life, everything is really, really good. All right, question number 3. Can I get back to my shape and athletic abilities after 10 years? I am 27 years old. Yeah, I would say absolutely. But you have to realize the longer you are out of shape, the longer it's going to take to get back into shape. Muscle memory is a very real thing, but the more time you take off, and if it's a whole decade, it's going to take a long time. Don't just think, 6 months and you're going to be able to get back into shape. It also depends what kind of shape you're really talking about, or what kind of athletic abilities. That could mean a whole different, range of things. If you used to be extremely muscular, that's going to take time to build back. If you had some kind of like sprinting skill or specific sports skill, again, those are going to take time to build back. But 27 years old, you're not exactly old either, so I think yes, this will absolutely be possible in most cases. Question number 4 is, what do you think of Jason Blaha's 5x5 2.0 workout plan? So I'll put it on the screen. It's basically an ABA, BAB workout where you're working out 3 times per week. It looks like basically full body. It basically looks like the 5x5 strong lifts basic 5x5 template with a little bit of higher rep stuff at the end. So workout 1, you're doing squats 5x5, bench press, bend over row, both 5x5 as well. Then barbell shrugs for 3x8, tricep extensions, same 3x8, and then straight bar or incline curls 3x8 as well. Hyperextensions 2x10, and cable crunches 3x10. So it's basically just adding bodybuilder type of work to the end of the stuff. And then the other workout is adding in closed grip bench press, straight bar or incline curls, and cable crunches as well, both in the 8 to 10 rep range. This looks pretty reasonable. I think you'd get good results on this. I think the main criticism of 5x5 is that it doesn't add any high rep isolation work, and this sort of solves that. It adds in some arm work, it adds in a little bit of shoulder work, a little bit of ab work, a little bit of posterior chain stuff, a bit of traps as well, and it looks solid. Nothing crazy, nothing super personalized, but I think most people would get at least solid results on this type of program. It's also worth noting that this isn't a comment on Jason Blaha or his other content. This is just this program. A few people have asked me to review him as a content creator, and I haven't really seen that much of his stuff, so this is just a comment on this program, nothing else. Number 5, when will you make a training video on deadlift? Maybe sometime soon. It is one of my more requested ones. The thing is, I can do 6 or 8 sets of cable pull downs or bent over rows or something else, but doing 8 or 10 sets of deadlifts is a pretty brutal workout, and right now I'm on a pretty low volume program, so I'm basically just doing 2 sets of deadlifts per week. So it's really just a filming issue. And people say, oh, use fake plates. No, I don't have fake plates, nor would I use them, obviously. Or just use 135. Well, the movement changes, and it's sort of dishonest to show a tutorial with super light weight, because the mechanics of the lift absolutely changes. Your center of gravity is different, how the bar moves is different, and that's how people knew that Calisthenics' fake plates were fake plates, because they looked like fake plates. It looked like it wasn't as much weight as he was saying. So if I do a deadlift tutorial, I'll sort of need to slot out an entire day and do 8 or 10 sets of real deadlifts, which is quite a bit to recover from. So maybe in a few weeks, we'll see. Number 6, how to get bigger calves. So this is a lot of genetics. Just gonna say that right up front. Genetics are huge when it comes to calves. I see people walking around here in China who I guarantee have never lifted weights, and their calves are absolutely massive. They're probably 2 or 3 inches bigger around in terms of circumference than mine, and they don't do anything for calves. Now, I also don't really do much for calves, but if I really wanted bigger calves, I would do calf raises. My favorite way to do it is in a Smith machine, and I do 10 reps with my toes pointed in, 10 reps with my toes pointed out, 10 reps with them pointed straight ahead, and then collapse to the ground crying. Make sure you focus on each contraction. You're not just bouncing with short range of motion. You really need to do, focus on the muscle contracting. Get a good peak contraction, pause at the bottom, get a stretch as well. Put your feet on plates. That's going to be really helpful for that. And make sure you develop that mind-muscle connection. Calves, if you do them right, are one of the most excruciating muscles to train. They are absolute hell. And that's part of the reason why most people don't really train calves, because they are a little bit of reward, because let's face it, no one gives a fuck about calves, and they really do cost a lot in terms of mental effort. It's also worth noting that for a lot of people, they are already very active when you are walking. So unless you're in quarantine and not really moving very much, they are being used for quite a bit every day. And this means that they are already getting quite a bit of stimulus, so just adding a little bit of volume in the gym might not do that much. You really do need to hammer them, just attack them. They can handle high frequency and high volume, and they are very durable. So if you really want to get bigger calves, I don't really understand that, but keep in mind they can really take a lot of punishment, so punish them. Next question, push, pull, or full body or full split? Honestly, this matters less than a lot of people think. They might think you'll get radically different results on a different split, but the difference is, as long as you're focusing on progression, won't be that different. If you take 3 twins, or 3 triplets, and you put one on a push-pull, one on full body, one on full split, and at the end of the year, you measured the difference in results, I don't think it would be massively different. I think one, maybe the full body would get slightly better results, maybe the push-pull would do better than the full split, but there's no guarantee that one would be better than the other. It is, to a certain extent, individual. And this is why when I get a client, I ask them a lot of questions, because it is very individual, and if I don't have that information, I don't know which split is going to be useful for them, and which is going to be optimal for them. Generally speaking, start with full body, move towards maybe push, pull, or upper lower, and then possibly experiment with a full split a little bit later. But that's not always the case, that's not always true. That's just a very, very general rule of thumb. Finally, I think every person should experiment with every split at some point in their training career. I've done all of them before, and I find that either push-pull legs or upper-lower is going to be the optimal amount of volume per session and higher frequency. Full splits don't really seem to work very well for me. I'll get like a couple of days of growth from my Monday chest session or whatever, but then I'll be going backwards the rest of the time. All right, the next question, can our body adapt to intermittent fasting on a daily basis and reduce the overall impact? All right, I get questions like this about cardio, about lifting, like, will I adapt to it? Yeah, you're going to adapt to it, and that's sort of the point. That's why we train. That's why we do this type of stuff, to get an adaptation from our body. If there's no adaptation, there's no point in doing it. And so, yes, your body will adapt to intermittent fasting, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm not even sure what reduce the overall impact would be. Like, you get less fat loss. Yeah, your body is going to adapt over time, and you'll have to change things. That's where, you have to listen to your body. You have to try different things. Having a coach helps, etc. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to reduce in value over time. Just because, for cardio, you get less benefits over time because you get more efficient, well, there's a limit to how efficient you can get. It's not like you're going to go from burning 100 calories per mile of running to burning like 12. No, you might get like 5 or 10% more efficient over a lifetime of doing a particular movement. So generally speaking, the fear that you're going to adapt to a particular workout, a particular form of cardio, a particular diet is just BS. It's told by people who want you to buy their program because it's new, it's innovative, and it's somehow going to get you drastically better results because it's different from what you've been doing. It's not true. Don't listen to that kind of BS. Question number 9. I feel terribly guilty for not deadlifting, but I just don't feel good when doing them. What's your advice? So there's 2 things you can do. 1, you can keep deadlifting, and maybe it'll become more comfortable, more natural over time. Number two, you can stop deadlifting and you can do other stuff. Honestly, both are viable solutions. I think everyone should deadlift, but it's your training, your body, your choice. You don't have to deadlift. Any muscle group that the deadlift works, with the exception of the spinal erectors, can be trained just as well from a different movement. So hamstrings, you can do RDLs, you can do back extensions, you can do hamstring curls, you can do good mornings. Glutes, hip thrusts, lunges. For quads, squatting is going to be much better than deadlifting. Anything with the back, the lats, any kind of pull down, pull up is going to be much better. Traps, you have shrugs, you have Olympic weightlifting, a lot of good movements for there as well. The deadlift is a time saver. A lot of bodybuilders don't do deadlifts. It works a lot of muscles, but no particular muscle does it work really, really well, with the exception of those spinal erectors. So any muscle that you can work with deadlifts, you can work better with another movement. So I would say there's no real reason to deadlift. It's a useful skill. It's a very, very big lift that you should be able to do. But if you don't do it, it's not the end of the world either. Especially if you feel some kind of pain, especially in the lower back, the sacrum, that area, it might just not be worth doing deadlifts. A lot of professional bodybuilders don't do deadlifts. And so why should you? I love deadlifting. I get most of my trainees to deadlift in some form, but it's your training and you don't have to do them. Are bodyweight exercises enough for a good physique? Yeah, absolutely. A good physique just requires a healthy diet and enough resistance training to have a good shape. You're never going to be like Mr. Olympia. You're never going to be, a standout natural bodybuilder without weights, but you can look good. You can be healthy. Calisthenics are awesome. I have a lot of videos from quarantine period, and I maintained my physique fairly well, and I still, felt healthy. I still felt good. I still, look pretty good if I say so myself. So yeah, certainly bodyweight exercises are certainly enough for a good physique. For a great physique, I would say probably not, but good, it's enough. All right, the next question is, does bone broth have any of their purported benefits that many claim? All right, so if you give a dog a bone, it likes to chew on that bone. This is a sort of vestigial instinct from what it was a badass. When it was a wolf, when it could actually do stuff instead of just being cute, it would go for the bones. And wolves like to crack open the bones and chew the marrow because there is a lot of nutrition, a lot of vitamins, minerals, fatty acids in the marrow. And so, yes, it does perhaps have some benefits, but don't expect it to be a complete game changer when it comes to fat loss or muscle building or health or really anything. And as an aside, the guy who's asking this question, he's asked a lot of questions, and focus on the stuff that matters. Don't focus on the fads, the gimmicks, stuff you can add that, claims to be magic. Nothing is magic. There are no magic exercises, no magic diets, nothing. Just focus on the calories, focus on being consistent, focus on getting in quality workouts, quality sleep, the basic stuff that is going to get you 80 or 90% of your results. That extra stuff, it really doesn't matter that much. Training calisthenics for upper body and weights for lower body, good or bad? I actually really like this. You can overload the upper body pretty easily when it comes to calisthenics. You can do dips, pull-ups, a lot of more advanced movements as well. But for the lower body, it gets to be a little bit trickier. And if you look at a lot of top calisthenics guys, they're pretty jacked in the upper body, but then they'll have chopsticks for legs. And so if you can add in just squats and deadlifts and maybe lunges, maybe some other machines, leg press, etc., I think you can develop a very pleasing physique with just doing very little upper body work in the gym. You can do mostly calisthenics for your upper body and weights for your lower body. I think that is definitely a viable strategy. Next question, do biomechanics limit squat depth? Is going as deep as you can effective? All right, so if you are limited by your mechanics, either your ankle flexibility or your hip mobility, somewhere in there, if you try to go as deep as possible, you're going to get that range of motion from somewhere you might not want range of motion. So usually this is going to be the lower back. You're going to get butt wink. Your pelvis is going to tuck under, and this can place significant stress on the lower back. So I would say no. If you can't get down to depth, just go as deep as you can, or use a box squat, or use single leg work, or improve your mobility. If you cannot go deep, and you go deep anyway, somewhere is going to give. It could be your hip labrums, it could be your knees, it could be your ankles, it could be your lower back, but somewhere in the kinetic chain is going to compensate for your lack of range of motion where you need to have range of motion. So I would say you need to feel this. Film yourself when you're squatting. I get videos from clients all the time on the major movements just to make sure everything is correct. Improve your adductor mobility, your hamstring flexibility, somewhere in there. But some people just can't squat deep. They have the hip structure where they just, no matter how much mobility work they do, they just don't have the hip mechanics to squat that deep without getting injured. And if you consistently get injured from squatting deep, you don't have to squat deep. I mean, it's a great movement, there's a lot of benefits, but it's not essential. No movement is worth getting injured over. Trust me. So know yourself, know what positions you can get in, and if you can't go super deep, limit your range of motion. You're still going to get a lot of benefit from squatting without getting injured. Other ways to improve number of burpees in a minute without doing more burpees. Yeah, just getting in better general shape, squat jumps, I guess, maybe weighted squat jumps, push-ups, clapping push-ups. But what's going to improve the number of burpees in a minute is doing burpees in a minute. So if you want to get better at something, try to be as specific as possible. Don't try to reverse engineer it and try to focus on different parts of this actual task. Focus on the actual task. So this is where I don't really like CrossFit, because people, they just end up doing everything and they don't actually get good at any one thing. So if you want to improve your number of burpees in a minute, try to see how many you can get and then get more next time. That is going to be the most effective thing. Also, why are you doing this? Burpees suck. No one should do burpees. There's no real reason to do burpees. And if you want to do burpees, you can do burpees, but there's no real need to do burpees, and they're not going to be all that beneficial. How much muscle did you put on in 2 years? So I went from about 68 kilos up to about 85-ish in 2 years. There was a little bit of fat gain, but not too much. So I would say I probably gained at least 13 kilos of muscle, if not closer to 15. And that is a lot. That's more than the average person for sure. Even though I didn't really know what I was doing, I trained really hard. And I did put on a lot of strength and a lot of size in a fairly short amount of time, naturally, obviously. And it's going to be individual. I wouldn't say anyone should expect 15 or 14 or 13 kilos of muscle in 2 years, but it is certainly possible. All right, the next question, is it important to be consistent in reps with all sets or perform each set equally close to failure? So this is basically asking, is it important to do 3 sets of 10 with the same weight, or do something like 10, 8, 6, where every set is equally close to failure? Each are a little bit different. I think both have value. Experiment, see which one you prefer. Generally speaking, the closer you go to failure on more sets, the longer it's going to take to recover, but also the more stimulatory each set is. So 3 by 10 is going to be a little bit easy to recover from, but 10, 8, 6 might have slightly more benefit. So it really just depends on your overall volume, your plan, and how quickly you recover. When do you realize that you need to switch your program? So this is a little bit complicated. I think a lot of people switch their programs too early. They'll do a program for a couple weeks, not really see any results, and they'll switch their program. You have to realize that for a lot of programs, especially more advanced programs, or if you are more advanced, it's going to take time. You can't necessarily see results after 2 weeks. If you're a beginner, you probably should, but I would say at least follow a program for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, so you can actually see how you are responding to it and how your body is changing, or if it's not changing, what you might want to switch. If you're not getting any results after about 6 to 8 weeks, then yeah, you're probably going to need to change something. It could be something minor, just some tweaks, or it could be a complete overhaul. It really just depends. Another reason would be if your goals change. So if you wanted to do powerlifting and now you're like, back to bodybuilding, your program is probably going to need to change as well. Next question, is retracting the scapula as necessary on dumbbell bench press compared to barbell bench press? I would say no, it's not as necessary. First, you're going to be using slightly lighter weights in most cases. Second, you have to get the dumbbells into position, which means you're not going to be able to retract as much. And third, you have more freedom of movement with dumbbells anyway, so it's not going to be as stressful on the shoulders. What are your opinions on Jordan Yeoh? I actually hadn't heard of him before this. He has about 2.7 million subscribers on YouTube. He has a great physique. I think he's natural. He seems to have mostly core workouts, bodyweight workouts, that kind of stuff, which isn't really my cup of tea. But, he can train however he wants. And, he seems like a good guy, but I didn't really do a ton of research on him either. Are harder workouts always better than easier ones for hypertrophy? No, not at all. They did a study where 10 sets of 10, German volume training, was actually worse than 5 sets of 10. So doing double the work not only didn't lead to double the gains, it actually led to worse gains. So there's going to be a Goldilocks zone of how much volume and how hard you should train, where that produces the optimal results. Too little, not good. Too much, not good. You have to find that sweet spot that gets you optimal results. It's going to be like a bell curve. A moderate amount is going to be the best. Is it safe for teens to work out without fear of growth plate and ligament injury? Yeah, of course. Don't do anything extreme or super strenuous, but you can absolutely work out. You can absolutely get in good shape. I think fears of like reducing your height or getting injured because you're growing are mostly unfounded. And if you think about it in terms of evolution, that wouldn't make any sense. It's not like you go from 17 to 18 and you're now like a transformer. You go from not being able to do anything to being able to work out. You graduated. Good job. No, it's a continuum, and you can and should be able to work out at a young age. Unable to feel biceps contraction. So what I like to do for people who have trouble feeling a specific muscle, and this works better in person than online, but I'll get them to do like an epic workout for that body part, enough where it gets really sore. And then a couple days later, when they're just brutally sore, I'll have them like practice contracting that muscle. And it's much, much easier to feel when the muscle is sore, it's tender, it's beaten up. And so if they have trouble feeling their lats, I'll have them do, a very high volume back workout, like drop sets, a lot of pump sets, etc. They'll get really sore. And then a couple days later, I'll say like, okay, when you move, how can you feel your lats, or your biceps in this case? And they'll say, okay, if I like crunch my torso this way, I'll feel my lats more. And then I'll say, okay, do pull downs and try to feel that contraction. And just practice feeling that contraction while you are sore. It's going to be so much easier. And do the same thing for your biceps. Do a bunch of curls, do a bunch of, drop sets or whatever. Get your biceps sore, and then see which position you can flex and contract and get that sort of very tight feeling in the muscle. All right, the next one, lean bulk tips, please. This is mostly not getting excessive with the calories, but making sure you're in a surplus. So you can gain muscle at maintenance, you can gain muscle in a deficit, but if you're lean bulking, you should be in a slight caloric surplus. But the emphasis is slight. You don't want to be super high, you don't want to be 500 calories or 1,000 calories in a surplus. Just find a very, very slight amount where you can be in that surplus and you can gain over a long period of time. What I see for some people is they'll go into like a massive surplus and then they will, get fat, and then they'll be like, oh shit, I need to cut. And then they'll cut, and they'll cut hard. So they'll either be at like 1,500 calories or 4,000 calories. And, if your maintenance is 3,000 calories, you want to be at like 3,100 or 3,200. Get just enough excess calories to actually be able to build muscle, and you don't need that much. So be strict, track things, try to gain maybe half a kilo per month or maybe a kilo per month at the very most, and just be strict and ride that bulk as long as you can. Can I still realistically expect to gain size if I only have access to 1/3 of my working weight? How? Potentially, yes. If you do high volume, close to failure. I did a whole video on this. I'll link it in the description. But yes, you can maybe still gain size, possibly. Depends on a lot of factors. But, if you don't have any other choice, then you have to do high reps. You have to go to failure. You have to do pretty high volume. That's just how it is. Go to quick breakfast. I don't eat breakfast. So nothing. All right, the next question is, how much are you making being a PT and writing amazing contents for the internet? So I think it's important to be honest. I know a lot of people don't talk about how much money they make. I basically have 4 sources of revenue. The first is going to be my book. I sell roughly 40 to 60 copies per month, and so it's about $5 per copy that I make. And whether it's hard copy or ebook, I make the same amount. I set that so it's equal. I make about $200 to $300 per month off of that. Off of YouTube, I could make about $80 to $100 per month as well, but I turned off ads just because they were so bad, and I want to have the freedom to say what I want to say. I also make money from medium.com, which is where I'm going to move the majority of my written content, just because I think their platform is more fair and they treat the writers a lot better. It depends if my stories get curated. Wow, it just started pouring rain. If my stories get curated, then they'll earn a lot more money. So the most I've made off of a story is $218. Then the second one is $110. The third one is $92, and the fourth one is $35. So those 4 stories are about 90% of the money I've made. And if you do the math, I've made about $500 so far off of Medium. But of course, this is exponential. If I grow even more, I'll make more money. And so that could actually become a decent source of revenue. However, the majority of money that I make is coaching people and writing custom diet and training plans. The first month, January, that I was doing this, I made about $600. And since then, it has gradually gone up. In February, I made about $1,000. March, a little over $2,000. And then last month, in June, I made $3,800. So it's gone up quite a bit. I work very hard. I'm very diligent with all my clients, etc. And it's definitely money that is hard earned. Now, I know some people are going to look at that and say, wow, that's a lot of money. And then other people are going to look at that and say, wow, that's not very much money. It really just depends where you are. It depends on your perspective. And for me, it's not even really about the money. As long as I have enough to live comfortably and provide for my wife and I, then it's enough. I don't need to be a millionaire. I would rather have my integrity than sell scammy products. A lot of companies have approached me and said, like, can you represent our product? We really like your Quora post, etc. Can you plug our product in your post or whatever? And I don't really feel the need to do that. As long as I'm making enough money in an honest way, I would rather work harder and do it the honest way than sell out and just sell some bullshit product or some stupid system or, claim that something does what it doesn't, etc. So I work hard for my money. I do it in an honest way. And I don't feel at all bad about the money that I'm making because I do work hard for it and all of the clients are super happy. Strength standards for the average person. I would say a 2-plate bench, 3-plate squat, and a 4-plate deadlift are good sort of basic standards. I haven't hit all those, by the way. And then if you add 1 plate to all of those, that's when you are legit strong. I don't think everyone can hit those numbers just genetically, but I think a 3, 4, 5 plate for bench, squat, deadlift are good, excellent standard goals. Weight is up 2 kilos and I have increased strength, but no increase in size or waist. How does this happen? Well, the weight has to be somewhere, dude. It's either in your fat or in your muscles, unless you experience some kidney gains or some shit like that. It has to be somewhere. So sometimes your muscles will increase in size, but if it's distributed everywhere, you might not notice it. Also, if you gain a little bit of fat over the muscle, your muscles might not look bigger, even if they are bigger. So they might have a little bit less definition, less vascularity, but they've actually gotten bigger. Especially if you've increased strength, I think this is what is most likely happening. And last one, I work out 5 days doing a push-pull routine. Is it okay to train legs 1 day? Yeah. It's your training. You can train however you want. If you don't want huge legs, training legs once per week is completely okay. Your goals, your body, your training. As a coach, my job is to get you towards your goals, not tell you what your goals should be, as some coaches do. If you don't want big legs, you don't have to train legs super hard or super heavy. There's absolutely no problem in doing that. Lots of people don't train legs at all. That's not sacrilege or something horrible. Ooh, Zeus is angry with you not training legs. But again, it's up to you. You're training your body, your choice. All right, that is all for today. Make sure to like the video if you liked the video, subscribe, turn on notifications, etc. And I will see you all in that next video. Peace!